Hey guys, Dustin here. You ever gotten news of a place shutting down from your past, maybe from your childhood or recent history? You kind of had like mixed feelings about. I mean, like maybe there's some great memories there, or maybe there were some kind of like, maybe not so good memories. But like when you heard that the place shut down, you kind of had this mixed emotion. Like you were happy for the memories or glad you had them, but maybe kind of sad that the place is still kind of shutting down. There was actually a place there where I grew up. It's called Manteca Water Slides. I remember going there as a kid. I probably went to like 10, 12 different birthday parties there. And I went there all the time. It was awesome. And I remember like going down the slides, and it was just so much fun as a kid. And then I remember there were other times where like you had like these rubber mats that you would hold on to, and you go down head first, and like sometimes they would just slip off. And you have like these random mats up on the side of the hill and that kind of stuff for the slide. And man, like you're going down, and you get like this big rash on like your body because like you're riding on concrete and stuff. And maybe that's the reason why I got shut down. But man, it had like so many great memories, and it had so many kind of like kind of like weird and maybe not so great memories as well. But then I heard that the place shut down years ago, and honestly, it's kind of sad, like, man, like there are so many memories there, both good and both, kind of like, but yeah, it was kind of sad. I had this kind of experience, this past weekend. There's a place where I lived, probably, collectively a couple of years at, it's called Kandahar Air Base in Afghanistan. So I saw headlines like this, and I was kind of torn, because there's some great memories there. Great times with camaraderie and with my soldiers and flying and all that kind of stuff. And then there were some not so great memories. There were some great memories there because it had like a boardwalk, and it had like a TJ Fridays, and it had a pizza joint, and there's actually a hockey rink there until the Canadians left, and then it shut down. And then there's actually a Tim Hortons donut place. If you guys don't know Tim Hortons, it's the best donuts ever. Well, second to Mr. T's in Modesto, California, my hometown, but that's just science. You can't argue with it. But it was such a great place, and yet there were times that it wasn't so great because I was away from my family, and there were times where I'm talking to my wife on the satellite phone, and the reception just cuts out, and I'm leaving my wife back in the States and me in Afghanistan not knowing, and she's concerned because it just cut off, and and so there are times like that where there were great memories, and there were kind of like not so great memories. And we got rocketed every single night almost for a couple of days, every year. And actually almost got blown up one time that, round fell right outside our hangar where my tent was that I worked out of. And, even then, I was still kind of sad to see it shut down. I mean, there's so many memories there, but yet still so happy that, this chapter in America is eventually coming to a close. It made me think of some stories there and some times there that I had, and I want to share one of those with you today. So those of you who don't know, I used to fly airplanes for the Army. And so one of my deployment stations was Kandahar Airfield in Afghanistan. This is in the southern border of Afghanistan. And, again, I had the opportunity to work with some phenomenal human beings. I mean, not just the Americans and the people in my group, but great alliances. I mean, great NATO allies, great, countries from around the globe really fighting this global war on terrorism. In one of our flights, that I'll think of, just kind of, again, all these emotions are coming back after hearing all this information about them shutting it down. There's this time where I was flying, and, I was in the intel community, so my goal was really to go out and find bad guys and try to end, their nefarious acts, so to speak. And we were out there one day, and this haboob came in. And before I get in trouble, that is a real thing. Here's a picture of one. But what a haboob is, it's really just a huge dust storm that kind of comes through the land, right? And it's really weird because when you're in a haboob, like, you can't see horizontally. Probably the best example that I could kind of explain is picture yourself driving down the highway at like 80 miles an hour. Of course, well, maybe 65 or 55 because you're follow the rules and follow the speed limits. But picture yourself driving down the highway, with thick fog. I mean, you could barely see the end of your hood in front of you. And yet, like, when you're flying, you can't just pull off the side of the road, ride the rumble, bumps until you get off to the side, then you're safe. Like, you have to keep flying because you have no other option, right? We have a saying in aviation that is, every takeoff is optional, but every landing is mandatory, right? So you have to come land somewhere. And the weird thing about haboob is you can't see horizontally, but you could see vertically. Like, you could look up and see the sky. You could look down and see the ground. And so one time we're coming off mission, and we heard that this haboob was actually kind of popped up and was rolling through the airfield, in a matter of minutes, and we had to get back as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. So we're out there and we're circling. We're trying to shoot a couple approaches in, and again, aviation terms here, but we're shooting an instrument approach. And what that is we follow our instruments on our panel, and it allows us to get down to about 200 feet above the ground. And that's the safest, most complex, but yet most accurate landing system that we have. It allows us to get down on glide slope, on course, right down to the airfield. Now, again, the problem is I can't see the airfield. And so we shot one approach, and we did a go around and came back and tried again for a second time. Unfortunately, at this point, between our fuel reserves, we knew that we had maybe about 2, maybe 3 more tries at most before we purely just ran out of fuel. And so we had to kind of really think about, like, what are we going to do here? And so again, we can't see horizontally, but we can see vertically. So because we've flown this path, numerous times at this point, basically just briefed with my co-pilot, said, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go outside of the standard operating procedures, the SOP here, and we're going to descend further out, below glide slope. And really, I can't see horizontally, but I can see the ground. And I know the ground in front of us. And so, I know what the ground looks like at 5 miles. I know what it looks at 3 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile. And so what we did is we just essentially dropped down at 200 feet, a lot lower. Now, again, for all the aviation people out there, I know this is not right. I know this is breaking the rules, but the airfield was closed. I didn't have fuel to go anywhere else. It was either land at the airport and try this, or land in a desert somewhere, which was not a preferred method, so to speak. But yeah, so we did that. And literally as we're flying, we got down lower than glide slope, lost rate of contact. And so really all we're doing is now we're flying this thing. We're looking down and, okay, there's the house. I'm looking now for the road and the telephone wires. Okay, there that is. Here's that little pond. Okay, great. And so essentially what we did is we flew looking out the windows essentially for ground markers in front of us until we knew that we were close, until we finally saw the runway lines. Now, again, this was not the preferred method. And again, for all the aviation folks out there, we did get there and brief, the senior instructor pilot there, say, hey, this is what we did. Sorry, punish me if you want to, but I'm alive and I'm here, so I'm going to go have some lunch now. But yeah, it just made me think about, like, that was not a great, happy memory, but it's a memory that I will always have, and a memory that will always be etched in my mind because of what we had to do to get home safely. And which made me kind of think of some other things. I think just that one example kind of brings up, called some different life lessons. I think one thing that is there is that you always plan for the best, right? You always plan, for the worst, right? You always make sure that to mitigate risk as best as possible, that you always look at all factors that are involved in the situation, right? You always want to plan for the worst. Now, you expect the good and you hope for the best. But it's important to make sure that if this thing doesn't work out the way it's planned, right? Whether it's life, whether it's business, whether it's marriage or kids or whatever the case may be, you need to plan for those type of things. So when they do happen, you've got plan B and C ready to go. The other thing that I was thinking about too is, when you do kind of strategically plan for something, and sometimes you can't see the end goal, right? You can't see horizontally. You can't see what's right in front of you because of a haboob, or because of fog, or because of the market trends. You're not quite sure how it's going to happen. You're not quite sure about what your industry is going to look like in 6 months, let alone 6 years. I think the recent year, the pandemic, has really shown us that really a lot of times we don't know. All the trends and forecasting we can do, we're not really sure about what's going to happen. Now, you need to make sure that you still have those guides and those kind of goalposts along the way to ensure you're on course. Now, for us flying, we had the instrument panel knowing that, hey, we are on course. We know that we are right on course. We're below glide slope, that's okay, but we know that we're within the boundaries and the barriers of where we need to be. I can still see the metrics out in front of me. I can still see us meeting the KPIs, the metrics along the way to get to those runway lights and land the airplane. And I think that comes us to the third point there, and that is really growth happens in the margins. When things are not comfortable, when things are not as they should be, as they are planned, I think that's sometimes where we have the most growth. When we're in this flight and I'm working through this with my co-pilot, and we're kind of pointing out, hey, these are the things that we're looking for. I'll be honest, like, it was not comfortable. And yet we had no other option. So it was kind of like, this is what we have to do. And yet when we're looking at that, I feel like I and he became better pilots because we took all the information that we had. We have everything in our cockpit showing us what exactly we're looking at, but there's so much unknown. There's so much uncertainty. And so it really forced us to rely on our training. It forced us to rely on our own capabilities and our teamwork in the cockpit. That crew core, that crew coordination that we always harp upon in aviation, that is, we had to rely on each other to grow and be successful in this thing. And thankfully we were. I'd probably say the last thing that kind of really I started thinking about as far as life lessons, so to speak, and that is, when your back's up against the wall, you got to come out swinging. When there's no other options, like for us, we didn't have fuel to go anywhere else in the country. We didn't have fuel for it. And so our only option was to land there. You don't have any options except for coming out swinging. You have this metric, which is getting home. You have everything coming at you. And what I feel like happens is when you're in that situation, man, like when life puts you in that position, like you'll be amazed at how creative and effective you become. When money and resources in a business becomes limited, when you don't have the key talent you need to bring your business out of the pandemic, you get very creative. Your marketing changes. Your sales reps change their pitch. Your HR becomes more adaptable to change. Your work from home policies and remote work policies changes to adjust because you don't have any other options. And I feel like that is what happens. You become really creative. You become really succinct with what needs to happen to grow and mature and become successful. And so, yeah, hope you enjoyed the story. But again, when I saw this article, I was just like, man, like, it's kind of torn, so many great examples and so many great memories, but so many just challenging times that, frankly, I'm going to have forever because of my experiences. And I hope there are times in your life where you feel like you are up against the wall in 6 months, a year down the road. You can look back and say, like, wow, I really grew out of that. Because of that, because of those challenging times, I am a better man. I'm a better woman. I'm a better husband, better wife. I'm a better, dad, mom. I'm a better business leader. Whatever that may be, I really hope you guys have that. And as always, best wishes. Be awesome. Take care. Hey guys, I hope you really enjoyed that quick little talk about my flying experience in haboobs in Afghanistan and everything else. And I really hope that you enjoyed just the kind of life lessons I was able to pull from it. If you found value in this, if you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe and like and check out these other videos we've got here. Again, love to connect with you down in the comments or whatever way possible. Be awesome. Take care. Bye.